get to know how to react or to deal with the changes which have come up in this law. This is what we're going to be discussing this morning. So please tune up your volume and let's flow. On this note, I would like to say a big welcome to lawyer Joyce van Koesveld. Welcome, lawyer Joyce.
Thank you very much.
How are you
today? Nice to be here. I'm fine, thank you.
I'm sorry I have to get you up so early.
Well, I'll be home early again as well.
That's
no
good.
problem.
Anyway, I would like you to tell our listeners how the law defines family formation and family reunion, because I think these are two different things.
Yeah, that's two different things. There's always been a big difference between these two, but what is important is that family reunion means that you have...
Somehow I think your signals are low, so
okay.
you can get to draw the microphone closer.
I have 3 microphones here. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. There's family reunion means that you have had a family when you were back in your own country, and that you want to be reunited with that family, so that that family comes to live with you once again. When it's when you've came to the Netherlands, for instance, and then during your stay here you met a new partner, that is what kind of the forming of a new family. So
okay.
that is something new. And there used to be a very big difference between family reunion and if there is a new family, but these changes have gone a bit smaller nowadays. So there's not that much difference between the two anymore as there used to be.
Okay, so the two, family formation and family reunion, are pretty much close now.
It's close now. What is very important to realize is that if there is family reunion, that you already have kind of a right to be together with your wife, with your children. And these are human rights, and these human rights are very strong. So you can imagine that if you have already exercised this right to be a family, that right is stronger than when you choose a new partner. Because then the Dutch government can say, okay, this is a new partner, and then, well, why do you choose a new partner who's not living in the Netherlands already, or choose a partner that does not already have a staying permit here? Okay. And then, I think you can imagine that when you have a balance and when you're weighing all the interests, that if it's a new family, that you have to. It's a bit different than when it's a family that you already had.
Yes, naturally. Okay. So the question is, we were aware that some changes were coming into the family reunification laws. I don't think there were changes for the better, so to speak. It was to kind of make things tighter. And so my question to you is, what has necessitated the change in the form and interpretation of this law?
Okay, it's not so much a form of different interpretation. It's actually they put even tighter boundaries on certain elements of the law. First thing is, and I think maybe easier to start with that. That has not so much to do with family reunion as to the fact when you have a staying permit here, whether you are allowed to get a renewal of your staying permit, because there has already come into action since last 1st of July, and that is that if you already have a staying permit for 3 years or longer, any kind of criminal offense, any kind of conviction, even if it's only for 1 day imprisonment, well, and that is something that can happen. Well, it kind of can happen to anybody. That can mean that your staying permit or your residence permit can be revoked. The problem is it's very new law, as always, and that
took effect.
Since yesterday. Since yesterday. So this is really something very new. But this is something very important that because what is really gone much stricter is that during the first 3 years of your legal stay in the Netherlands, any criminal offense can, it doesn't really have to be, but can have consequences for the renewal of your staying permit.
May I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I mean, people are prone to criminal behavior anyway, so why should foreigners be victimized in this case? I mean, people who have chosen to stay in the Netherlands, you know, why should they be victimized?
Well,
for criminal behavior, which everybody can commit.
That's a good question, because that is something that has been in the discussion with well, obviously the advice committee. That's for one, and they were looking at these plans of the government, and they were saying, well, why make such a big difference between Dutch people who commit a criminal offense and then they get a punishment and that's it, and then the next and EU citizens who really have to do something very bad to get their staying permit revoked, and then people from third countries who have to be like model citizens during the first 3 years, or otherwise they will only not get punished for what they did wrong, but they will also have, there's a real risk of being rejected and being sent back. So that's a very good question, and this government does not have an answer to it, other than if you come and live in the Netherlands, we have certain rules and you have to stick to the rules, and if not, then you're not welcome anymore. So that's why this is a political thing, I'm afraid.
Very political.
Very political. Yeah.
All right. We'll see. Well, this is a message to you all out there. Of course, we are expected to be good citizens wherever we are. I mean, there's no benefit whatsoever in getting involved in criminal activities. And so we want to be model citizens and be good ambassadors of whichever country we're coming from, and to live very well in the host country if you're living here in the Netherlands. So I think it's a good law. But I think also that foreigners or migrants shouldn't be singled out for victimization in this case. I think that is not fair. That is not fair.
No, what is more important, because when you read the law, there always has to be a weighing of the balances of the individual person who is confronted with these rules. But we know in practice that usually the first decision from the immigration office is going to be no, and then if you appeal that, then maybe they will change their opinion in that. But I think it's a bit naive to think that all the rights that you have, your rights to family life, your rights to anything, well, that will be very carefully weighed, because our experience is that when there's a possibility to say no, it's, well, most of the time it's going to be a no, and then you have to go to court, or you have to appeal that before you can change their mind. So it's a bit, they have to do it, they have to make a real balance, but I'm not convinced, and I'm not too sure whether this is really going to happen.
Okay. But you were telling us about some of the limitations or the boundaries which have been, so to speak, tightened regarding in the new law. I don't know whether that came out clearly. If you could go back to that and say. But
these boundaries are that in the past, then if you would have a staying permit and you would commit a criminal offence, and it wouldn't get you a prison sentence up to higher than 1 month, there were no consequences for the renewal of your staying permit. That used to be the issue. And now what they've done, and that's the tightening, that the first 3 years you have to be a model citizen, and otherwise there's a real risk that you're going to lose your staying permit, that it's going to be revoked or not renewed. So that's where they tightened the boundaries, where you were, well, allowed to make a slip. That's gone much tighter now. Okay,
it's nice in a way. Well, if you're listening to us out there, you have a reaction or a question for lawyer Van Koesveld, give us a call on 020-737-1619. If you know somebody who is in a particular situation and you are not clear about it, or you feel the situation has not been properly handled, and you want to clarify, this is your chance. Give us a call in the studio right now. Lawyer Van Koesveld will be here to give an answer. Now, the next question is, for family reunification, the cost, according to the EU rules, should not be more than that of the cost of the ID card. Is that still what we have here in the Netherlands? Because it looks like sometimes the cost associated with getting family into the country and getting the residence permits can be quite high. But according to the EU rules, it shouldn't be more than the cost of the ID card for which they pay.
No, well, there's been quite a recent verdict from the European Court about the height of the costs of the procedure of family reunion.
Yes.
Because at the moment it's well, first you have to do the inburgeringstoets, so you have to do the language test,
yes,
which will cost you €350. Then you have to apply for the MVV, so
yes,
the permit to be allowed to enter the country.
Yes.
That's €1,250.
That's a lot of money.
But then, well, you're not there yet, because then when you enter the country,
so that's already 1,500.
That's already 1,500. No, 1,600.
1,600.
And then when you enter the country, then you have to apply for the actual staying permit, and that's another 300.
Wow.
So you really have to save a lot of money to be able to do that. Now there has been a recent verdict that said that if this is about family reunion, and if this is about your rights to Article 8 of the Treaty of Human Rights, and
yes,
which gives you the right to be together with your family,
yes,
that the height of the costs of the procedure were so well, so extreme, exorbitant that the court said, well, this is not fair anymore.
Not fair.
This cannot be. So in certain cases, but it's really very restricted and actually a bit strange. Well, but in certain cases, the Immigration Office has a rule now that it does not have to be €1,250, but it can be €250 instead of 1,250. But that's only if you're asking for family reunion to be together with someone without an income. But then again, if you're trying to get a staying permit with someone without an income, that's one of the requirements that you have to meet to get a staying permit in the first place. So I'm not really quite clear about what Minister Leers is trying to do with this. And for the rest, they've said that they want to think about it. There are some verdicts, and they're going to appeal it because they want to figure out whether this European verdict has to be implemented in any way in our Dutch system. But for now, the costs still are very high.
Oh, still high. Okay. Yeah. And so now, who is to make sure that the EU regulations are implemented in the home countries, or unless a lawyer maybe take the matter up to the EU court, then something can be done. Because as it is now, it's like, okay, the Dutch immigration service does what it likes, implements the law the way it likes, unless somebody challenges it. Or not?
Exactly, that's true, because the only way we can challenge it is through the courts and ask the courts to take the case to Europe, or go all the way up to the European Court to challenge the case. Then, when there is a European verdict, then the Dutch government should be serious about that, and then either if they find out that they've done something wrong, change the law. But as it is right now, with these changes right now, there's an advice committee, and they've made an advice against changes of the law, and then afterwards, when you read the law, you can read, well, we've got a negative advice, but we don't agree with it. So the government is doing, at this point, they're doing what they think is right, and they're kind of neglecting very wise advice from advice council, and they will have to be punished, I guess, by the European courts before they are really willing to change the law, or to implement the European laws the right way in the Dutch law. But that's, again, it has nothing to do with law. It has everything to do with politics.
It could be that the Dutch, let's say, immigration service, or the Dutch government, for that matter, is testing the power, the pulse of the European regulations to see whether really they can.
Well, could be that. Your guess is as good as mine. As I'm not in politics, and I'll never be. I guess, but that could be the case, and that's always what they do. They look where they see what they want. They see what their restrictions are through European law, and then see how far they can go. Well, everybody does that, so that's not so very strange, I guess.
Now that you mentioned about still there is 250 euros which is required for family reunification. What does that amount cover? What is that supposed to be? Is it for the MVV or for?
That's for the MVV. So if you go very practically to the procedure, if you have a staying permit in the Netherlands and you want your wife to come to the Netherlands, or your wife and children to come to the Netherlands, he or she will first have to get the inburgeringsexamen, so the language test has to pass that one.
Yes.
So then that's 350 euros you have to pay. Then when she files the actual application, well, very practically, when you're in the Netherlands and your partner is, for instance, in Nigeria, she will do the language test, pass the language test, apply for the staying permit. And
so this applies to somebody who is Dutch citizen or somebody who has a residence permit? It doesn't matter.
There's no difference there. And then when she applies for the MVV, then the partner in the Netherlands will get a letter from the IND, well, that your partner has applied for a staying permit to stay with you, and then with a list of all the documents that you have to present to them, so that they can find out whether your partner is allowed to get a staying permit to be with you or not. So that is practically the way it's going. And then from the Netherlands you can pay that 1,250. Well, you will have to pay that 1,250 euros as well.
But you as a lawyer, are you able to challenge the 1,200 whatever?
1,250 euros.
Yes, which is supposed to be paid.
Yes,
now.
And we do that on a regular basis. But you have to realize that to be able to challenge it, practically speaking, is very difficult, because we've challenged it many times and saying, listen, we think that at least what I just told about the 250 euros in certain circumstances, and the 1,250, we've said, listen, it doesn't have to be 1,250, it has to be 250. But the problem is that the IND will only look into the case after the costs have been paid. And then if we ask them to make a decision first about these costs, if they agree, then everything is okay. But usually they don't agree, and they say, well, no, you know what? We will look into that, or you can appeal that about the cost, but first you have to pay. Well, and there is the problem, because the problem is not that you do not want to pay, but you do not have enough money to pay, and that still you want to be reunited with your family, but you're not rich enough to be able to exercise that right. And that's exactly where the tension is.
Absolutely. Well, we are on this topic, family reunification, the changes in the law which are supposed to take effect this month. And our guest is lawyer Joyce van Koesveld of Hart and Koesveld Advocaten in Amsterdam. There's one more question I want to put before we perhaps take a break. And the question is that there is the so-called Belgian route, or the EU route, where some Dutch people go to Belgium or Germany to facilitate marriage or reunion with family members because of, I guess, the way the laws are implemented here in the Netherlands. So that's an easier route for them. Now, is the Dutch system then being threatened by this apparent loopholes, and that is why the laws are being tightened here, or maybe made stricter, the admission rules for family reunion? Is my question clear to you?
But I don't think it works that way, because there's this European law, and the European, it's not really a loophole, because this is one of the possibilities of these European laws, is that if you have been, these rules are particularly written for Dutch people who live in Belgium, have a partner right there, and then decide to move back to their own countries. Because this Dutch person has to have the freedom to move around in Europe. And this freedom is worth nothing if he cannot be accompanied by his family. That is why it's written. And the fact that, because I don't want to call it a loophole, because this is a possibility.
Maybe it's the wrong term.
But a loophole looks like it's kind of illegal, so you're not supposed to do it, but people do it anyways.
But the reason why I use that term is because it's like because of the tightening. So I'm wondering, is it related to, is the Dutch government trying to, you know, restrict some of those possibilities for people who want to do it outside as opposed to doing it here?
I think they would want to, but I don't see at this point. That is, I don't see how. And the only thing they're doing it at the moment, because sometimes also, for instance, people who go to Spain and then have a staying permit there as the family member of an EU citizen. So
yes.
a Dutch person goes living in Spain,
yeah.
is being granted a residency permit there as the partner of an EU citizen.
Yeah.
And what you do see is that in the Netherlands they are kind of challenging that legal stay in the other country. And I think that is the way that they're trying to do it at the moment, because it's sometimes even with people who have an actual staying permits, and they can show it that I was accepted as the family member of an EU citizen
yes.
in Spain.
Yeah.
So now I'm moving back with my partner to the Netherlands.
Yes.
And what you see that the IND is doing is that there's a lot of disbelief whether people are speaking the truth about that, whether they have really been living together in Spain. And what you see is that they do a thorough investigation about the facts of the procedure to see if they can find anything that was, obviously done wrong by the Spanish authorities.
Yes.
And what you do see is that the Dutch government does not just accept the fact that you have a Spanish residency permit and just simply accept it and transfer it to a Dutch permit. That is what you see. They're very critical on these situations, probably because they know that people use this this route to get to be able to live together with their partners.
Have you handled cases involving, for example, like somebody?
Yeah.
And how did it go? Good?
Well, it depends, because if there's really something wrong there, like if they have pretended to be living in Spain, and if but if that was not true, if it's all fake or fraud, well, yes, that's something that will go wrong. But it's good to know that if you are going through that routine, to make sure that if you move back to the Netherlands, that you can present all the evidence to the IND, that you can show them that you have been living there, that you have been registered there in Spain, that you have been working in Spain or whatever other country you have been in, so that you can prove to the IND that there's nothing wrong with the staying permit or with the residency permit that was granted to you in the other European country. And I would think that the Dutch government should trust another European country that they're doing their work correctly, but they don't. No.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, some migrants are termed, economic refugees and all that. So sometimes there is disbelief about their motives and their intentions. But people are desperate, looking for it to survive. So it can happen.
And I can imagine. It's imaginable, but sometimes it goes a bit too far. Then you think, listen, they've made up their minds. They don't want to believe you, and that's it. And then they're going to search until they find something. But thank God, not always. And I do see there's some new movement within the immigration office to be also to talk more about the case and to look into it better than it was then. Sometime before, so hopefully there's a change for the better.
Okay, wonderful. Hey, if you're listening out there, you have a question for us, give us a call on 0207 371619. Let me ask the last question before we take the short break. Now, why was the promulgation of this new law put aside or shelved recently? Because it was to happen. Let me take this call. Good morning.
Good morning, it's Jared.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, hello.
Your name again, sir?
Jared.
Jared, yes. Yeah. Give us your question. Go ahead, give us your question.
The root was removed by for 3 years.
3 years,
Yeah, and if they are criminal acts, and they're going to send it back to their various resident or various home. That's for Dutch people too. So how are they going to do Dutch people who commit criminal acts?
Okay, the Dutch people. Okay, he said there are people who committed criminal acts. Migrants, they're going to be sent back home or something like that within the 3 years if they commit a criminal offense. What about Dutch people? Is that your question, sir?
Yeah, what about people who have Dutch passports?
Or they have Dutch passports?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a very good question actually, because when you have a Dutch passport, they cannot revoke your Dutch passport just like that and then send you back. So one of the things that is very important if you have a residency permit in the Netherlands is to make sure that after the 5 years you will be able to get the Dutch passport as well, because with the Dutch passport they cannot revoke your Dutch passport. When you're Dutch, then you will just be punished for what you did, but they cannot just revoke your residency. No, when you have a Dutch passport, you don't have a residency permit anymore. You are Dutch, and that's it. So that is very important. So when you have your Dutch passport, that is very that is big.
It gives you more security.
It gives you security,
but of course, it's not a license to do wrong, to do crime.
Then you're licensed. Then you're allowed to do something wrong. But
you are allowed to do something.
You're allowed to do something wrong. You'll get punished, but you will not be deported from the country. But it's a very good question, because this was one of the things that was discussed, because nowadays there are more restrictions for people to get the Dutch nationality as well, because they have to do to be well. You have to be like you have to have a college degree in Dutch society before you will be able to get the Dutch nationality. But it's very, very important for people if you really intend to stay here, indefinitely. From day one to start to go to school, learn about the Netherlands, get all your papers, get all your diplomas, so that you will be allowed the Dutch passport after 5 years.
Okay, Mr. Charles, I hope your question is answered.
Yeah, I got a last one.
Okay.
So if you are underage, they have 3 years document to stay in the Netherlands.
If you are underage,
60 years old, and you commit a crime.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do to that person?
Okay, good question.
Very good question again. It's just as if you've been studying the law, because one of the other changes I didn't mention was that in the past it used to be that when you were a minor, that those criminal offences didn't count in this procedure. But that has changed as well. So also when you're a minor and when you commit a criminal offence, that will be taken into consideration. But you have to be, and now I have to go back to that. It's not just a criminal offence, end of the staying permit, because there has to be an individual decision about the case. And you can imagine, I assume, that when you are a minor, you will be having family here.
Definitely.
The family might be here for a long time. So when you look into the individual circumstances of the case, I think that when you're a minor committing a crime, that there has to be very good reason to revoke the staying permit of the minor. Because that would mean that a minor child would have to go back to his own country by himself. Well, and you can imagine that there is a lot of the best interests of a child, the child's rights and everything that come into play then. So that when you go to the basics of the rules and regulations, that there has to be an individual weighing of balances, then
the decision is maybe based on all those factors put together.
So you can imagine that when it's about a minor, then the interest of the child will be very strong.
Very strong, yes.
Compared to what he did wrong.
So I think the point he probably wanted to establish that can a minor lose his or her residency based on that? But you are saying that may not come into, may not weigh so much as the circumstances around whatever the offense.
Formally, it's possible. Yes.
But now,
absolutely.
Not
really. But in fact, you will have to. And we're just at the beginning of this new laws and these new restrictions. So I have to see how this is going to develop. And when you look at Article 8 of the Treaty of Human Rights, the rights of the child and everything. My idea would be that it should be quite difficult to revoke the staying permit of a minor when the rest of his family is being here. But based on the law, it is possible.
It is possible. All right, thank you so very much. I hope your question will be answered, Mr. Charles. Okay. Okay, keep listening. Okay, bless you. Bye-bye. Okay, so answer the last question before we take a quick break. Why was the promulgation of the new law recently put aside?
I think
when is it supposed to take effect?
I'm sorry. I think you're talking about the second change that we have not really discussed yet, and that is the restrictions on, and that is really about the family reunion law.
Yes.
And that is that it used to be possible. Well, it still is, because we don't know when this law is coming into effect. But there's major change coming, and that is that it's no longer possible for unmarried couples to get a staying permit in the Netherlands, but you will have to be married before you can apply for a staying permit. That is something...
Okay, so you are saying that people who want to cohabit, that's what we call living together, they cannot more on that basis get a residence permit.
Exactly. Well, that is something that was about, it was supposed to start yesterday as well, but they have postponed
that. So that means that until that law comes into effect, people who want to live together and on that basis get a residence permit may still apply.
And all the applications that are done before this law comes into play will be considered based on the former laws. So that is very important. But we don't know. It might be when there's a message on the site of the IND that it will start next week. Well, then that is it, because everything, well, as far as the IND is concerned, is ready to be implemented and to be to come into play. But we just don't know exactly when. But this is a very important thing, because where you used to be able to prove that you have a real relationship, now you have to show them your marriage certificate, and it has to be registered here in the Netherlands. So that is a big change for people.
Okay. Now, I don't know whether you answered my second question. So why, when will it be, we don't know when it's going to be this thing, but why was it suspended?
That is a good question. As far as we know, it's because some practical things have not been arranged quite well. But to be honest with you, I think politically it should have been more of a problem, because I know that the government has fallen, and that means that certain subjects have to be postponed until we have a new government. And this, I was assuming also that this subject would be one of the subjects that had to wait until the new government was in place. But then they found a majority in Parliament to go through with these laws. But then again, it was postponed. So we're really not clear about what the real reasons are. The information that we get is that it's practically not ready to be acted yet. So that's
okay. So that means for those who still have plans to get together or to get a residence permit based on the grounds, may still do that before the new law actually is put into promulgation.
Exactly, but just keep in mind that means that at the date of the application, you have to have your papers that you've passed the language test. So that is usually something that takes the requirement that takes the most time. And you have to have all the other papers, like you have to have your bachelor and spinster certificates, and that has to be legalized. So you have to have the right documents. But if you have everything, and there's another reason why you're now waiting to file the application, my advice would be don't wait any longer. Do it now, because otherwise you will have. Well, you can overcome it, because if you want to get married, especially in Ghana and in Nigeria, it is possible, even if the person who you're marrying with is not present at that moment. But I can imagine that if you want to get married, you want to do it the right way.
Absolutely.
And you want to have a real party. You want to have it. You want it to be something special.
Yes.
And when you have to do it like this, it's more like, well, you're going through some formalities.
So are you saying somebody who is living here wants to marry a partner, let's say in Ghana, the person has to go do the marriage and then come back and then maybe start the procedure with applications over there for the partner to join?
Yeah.
So the proof of the marriage has to be brought in.
Yeah.
Or can somebody be here and arrange for the marriage to be done whilst the partner is down there and he or she is here?
Well,
and then bring the documentation.
That depends on the law in the country where you're from.
Okay.
To give you an example, in Ghana, when you have a customary marriage, it's not about the two people being
coming
together and saying,
family.
yes, I do,
but
it's about the coming together of the families, and then the proof has to be brought to the court, and then the court will formalize the customary marriage, and that customary marriage is recognized in the Netherlands. So. Well, I don't know exactly how it works in Nigeria, but I know that in certain circumstances it works the same. It kind of can work the same way. So that means that you can have your you can get married even without you being present.
Wonderful.
And it's wonderful. Unless I think it would be my own marriage, because I would like to be there and I would like to have it let it be a special day. But it is possible, and the only people who, in some circumstances, it might not be possible for you to get married in your own country. And if you can prove that by law you are not allowed to be married, then you can get another kind of staying permit, and that will be a staying permit in order to get married here in the Netherlands. So that's only if the law of your own country restricts you from getting married to your partner.
All right. Well, I had some other questions I would like to ask, but unfortunately we ran out of time. When you're having fun, they say time flies. Well, listeners, unfortunately we have to bring this discussion to an end. Thank you so very much for your attention, and I'd like to say to Ms. van Koesveld, thank you for coming. We always have fun when you're here. We hope you come back soon.
I'll be happy to, because there's always more than enough to talk about, but also to inform the people about their rights. Because if you don't know about your rights, then you will not be able to get them, and that can be a very terrible situation sometimes.
All right. Thank you very much once again. Stay tuned. We'll be bringing to you the news now.